And we are back with another episode of Commercial Roofing Radio. We got my buddy Graham in the house. I had the pleasure of meeting Graham at the American Contractor Summit a couple of years ago. At that time, he was running a roofing company with multiple locations. And now he's in the solar industry. Not only is he in the solar industry, but he's also really focusing on leadership and leadership development. And he actually has a company that focuses on that as well. So, we chatted and we kind of clicked right away. I really liked how you were very goal driven. You're focused on, character and leadership. So I'm excited about our talk today, my friend. What's going on?
Dude, it's an honor to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I think the last time we chatted was I think it was last year. We were talking about a race that you did, and then we met at the American Contractor Summit. So, dude, it's an honor to be here. It's great to see you again.
Absolutely,
man. Life is full. Life is good.
Dude, you got me hyped up because you hit me up and you're kind of talking about what you had going on with the legal leaders. So I ended up watching the video you had on your website. For I don't know, it was a series of days that you were doing leadership type stuff. I'll let you get into that, but I saw it. I watched the video. I was like, where do I sign up? And then it looked like I already missed the date. So I was like, dang it! But I was like, hey, I'm hyped to talk to you.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing these challenges often. They're free leadership challenges, and really the whole point of it is to get people into a container or an event, and we talk about leadership. And the challenge, the reason why I call it a challenge is because, dude, half the battle is showing up, especially early in the morning. So in the West Coast, I'd host them at 6:00 in the morning. Well, the point is I want people, number one, to show up, but get a quick injection of something that's going to challenge them as leaders, and then they get on with their day. So, the first challenge we did, we call it the Champion Challenge. We had over 70 people register, which was amazing. So I'm looking forward to the next challenge. And the point of that is to introduce, obviously, some of the content that we deliver at League of Leaders, but also to pour into people for 3 or 4 days. So
do you have a website or anything that people can go to learn more about that? Yeah,
it's leagueofleaders.com. League is in like sports league. So leagueofleaders.com. You can go to that. You can learn more about, what we do there, what we offer there. And then these leadership challenges, just watch me, pay attention to me on social media. The next one, I'll announce it. I don't have any dates set yet, but we're going to do it sometime in the near future. I really actually enjoy putting them on.
I love it, man. I watched the video. I got hyped up. So the next one, I'll definitely make sure I'm a part of. Because this is my thing, and I think a lot of business owners have this situation where I started a business. Mm-hmm. I was never even a manager once in my life. No management experience, and then all of a sudden you're learning how to hire, train, onboard, make sure that people are taken care of, feel valued, all that stuff like this. Running the business, but then also trying to develop as a leader. You're like, how do you make time to continue to develop as a leader? Yeah.
Well, and that's the challenge. That's the challenge that a lot of people have. When you get into business, it's like, well, you're so busy working in the business, on the business, plus personal stuff outside of work. Like, when do you have time? So we really, what this does is this forces you to make it a priority. Obviously when you spend money on something, you're going to see it through. So if everything was free in life, we wouldn't,
you wouldn't value it. You wouldn't
value it. Yeah. So the price tag is there so that you're valuing what, and you're going to show up and pour into it. And so that's really what this is about. I do a good job of holding people accountable to it. There's exercises and workbooks and things like that. So it's not just showing up and listening. There's things that you need to do to actively make sure that the learning, sticks. And there's exercises and things that you can do to actually apply to the business. So Yeah.
Do you have any advice? I think if I wanted to be a nicer person, I could say, hey, well, one thing you do is just give people compliments. Just do that. Is there any tips that you have as a leader where it's like, hey, just do these certain things in your day-to-day when you're with your team and stuff like that, where it seem small, but it's going to go a long way?
Well, you're going to have to go to work on the interior of you, and that's really what we do. What we do is we focus on self-leadership, We train people on how to lead themselves so they can lead others effectively. And so if you learn how to lead yourself mentally, spiritually, physically, then that'll translate into, leading other people. And so that's what we really, really focus on. So mindset, belief systems, identity, personal vision, goals, things like that. That's what we really focus on. And that's what the leader's DNA is all about, is those building blocks, that foundation. You have that foundation set, you're like light years ahead of the pack, because a lot of people do not take the time to really sit down and identify what their own personal values are. What they'll do is they'll, do something that sounds good, that sounds like a good value. Like I should value that, or this should be a value of mine. So I'm just going to go ahead and adopt it, but it's like really take the time to backtrack and think, like, is this something I truly believe in? Because a lot of times, I actually had a conversation with an owner. I was in Denver last week and had a conversation with an owner. And what we were talking about was living an authentic life, being authentic. And, if you don't have all those things defined, you're more than likely going to copy what other people are doing and what you think you should do versus what aligns with who you are. So we take the time to really dive into that. So then that way you don't wake up 10 years down the road and be like, dude, what did I just do the last 10 years of my life? This isn't even what I want to do.
Yeah. Otherwise life just kind of runs you. You almost have to slow everything down a little bit as a leader and really understand what your core values are. Work on yourself. Right? And if you're able to improve yourself and actually showcase those core values, it's going to just seep into your team. So, I don't think, enough leaders really understand how important that is, because if you're positive, if you're negative, it just trickles all the way down through. So, how you're acting, all your behaviors, everything, how you handle certain situations, you're setting the tone.
Totally. And a lot of times what happens is people, there's burnout. If you have a hard time hitting goals, I'd say burnout's probably the biggest thing.
I think burnout is probably the biggest one. I think you just hit it right there, right? I mean, because you could be a really good leader, but if there's burnout and everything like that, that's when it becomes a little more difficult.
Yeah, and another thing is, like, we get so caught up in giving and serving that we forget about, like, ourselves.
True.
You know what I mean? And so this is really focused on, like, an inside out approach. Like, it starts with you. It starts with, and if you're not straight, what do you think everything that you produce is going to be? Like everything that you do comes out of, like, the way you think and the way you believe and, your personal
perspective too, right? I mean, that's the thing is, if you're going through hard times as a leader, let's say you're struggling, the business is doing as well, your perspective, your lens on everything starts to change, right? And it becomes a lot harder when you have that negative lens on everything. So, I think as a leader, I think the biggest strength, or one of them, is just like grit, resilience, and being able to just show up at an even keel, even during like those harder times.
Totally. 100%.
Man, hey, dude, I got a few things I want to talk to you about, though, man. One thing, you've done some pretty cool things, and we'll definitely talk about them. And I think there'll be lessons from each one of them. But the one that, I don't get jealous often, but I was jealous of this. You did get to record a podcast with Steve Weatherford, right? He was named the fittest man in the NFL, right? The old punter for the Giants. He seems like a good dude. How was that? Was that a lot of fun?
Yeah, he's a good dude, man. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I met him a few years ago at a men's group, and so I'd see him every Tuesday morning for like a couple years, and he told me, he's like, you finished that Murph 365, dude. We're doing a podcast. I'm like, all right. Sounds good.
So I think that takes us to the next step here, right? Is the Murph 365. So I think you were actually in the middle of that when I just met you, or towards the end of it, I believe.
Yeah.
Because then I know that you did a video with John Dye and all of them as you did the last one. But the Murph 365 is 365 days of doing a Murph, which is a 1 mile run followed by 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 unweighted squats. And then followed by another 1 mile run. That's
Correct.
pretty wild.
Yep.
So why did you decide to do that? What was the story behind that, and what did you learn throughout it?
Well, the reason why I did it, I actually, funny enough, man, I think it was like last week or the week before, went back through my notes, and in that and looking at the notes, it was like I wrote down my why, and I'm like, okay. Because here's the thing, if you're ever going to do anything really challenging, you better have a reason why. You better have many reasons why. You better have like a bucket of whys, because
completely agree.
You're going to run out. Like it's sooner or later, like even when you start a business, I mean, yeah, your kids could be your why, or your family or your legacy could be your why, but like go deeper, dude. Like come up with 20 or 30 different things as to why you do things, because there's going to be a day where a customer rubs you the wrong way and you're just going to be like, why am I doing this? Like, yeah, my family legacy, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like you're going to run out of whys. Things will get so tough, you'll run out of whys. And so I'm like sitting there writing down the things. And the number one thing I was looking for was discipline. And the second thing I was looking for was like furthering my problem solving skills. I wanted to see how resourceful I could be, because here's the thing, man, when you do something like that difficult every single day, you're going to have to problem solve. And I was like, I'm not going to allow this to get in the way of my business. I'm not going to allow this to get in the way of my family. So I'm going to have to problem solve how to get this done. And those were the two biggest reasons why I wanted to do it. I wanted more discipline, and I wanted to sharpen my problem solving skills and be resourceful.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I love that answer.
So it's kind of funny like how it started. I mean, my former business partner, it was his idea. He came to me one day. It was the fall of 2019, I believe. Fall of 2019, we have this phone conversation. He calls me up, and he had just gotten back from like an NFL recruiting event or something like that. And David Goggins was one of the speakers. And so he came up with the idea. He had some one-on-one time with David, and he was like, David, what do you think about this? And he's like, that'd be badass, And so he called me after the event, was like, hey, what do you think about it? And I'm like, part of me was like, dude, that's insane. And then the other part of me was like, you're speaking to me, you're speaking to my soul. There's a part of me that like wants some of that. Mm-hmm. And, after that, I just kind of chewed on it, and I didn't think he was serious about it. I wrote it down on my little, possible goals for 2020. And at the end of the year, a lot of times you reflect on the goals that you had, and you reflect on what you accomplished and what do I want, you cast a vision for the next year and all that kind of stuff. So at the end of 2019, I'm sitting there and I actually wrote it down on my goal list for 2020. And so then 2020 comes around, January 1st comes around, and it's like, I didn't really take any action, or I didn't take any next steps, but I bought the domain on January 1st, Murph 365. And then I started, and I didn't hear anything back from my business partner about it. I didn't talk with him, or he didn't call me or anything like that. So then I started doing this coaching group with Tim Grover, and Tim is, this is around about the time where Kobe Bryant passed away. And so we all know that Tim and Kobe, Tim actually coached Kobe. Mm-hmm. And so we're in the middle of this coaching session, and he was just talking about, the legacy that Kobe left behind, and was talking about, how life is short and the things that we have on our list that we want to accomplish. Just go out and do it. Don't procrastinate. We procrastinate hard things all the time. And I'm like, I think he's speaking directly to me, you know? It's like, how does he know I have that Murph 365 on my list and I haven't done anything to start it? Like, we're at this time frame, I think it was like January or February or something like that. But I ordered that night. I ordered the weight vest, and as soon as it came in, I started. But that's like what pushed me over the edge was that conversation.
I like first off, I'm a big fan of Tim Grover. I had his book in college. What's the name of his book again?
Relentless.
Relentless. Yeah. So I had that book in college. Brought it when I studied abroad in Australia. When I did my first marathon in New Zealand, I had the book with me. Like when I was doing anything like challenging, I always had the book with me. And then when our first year in business, when we were working with Randy Brothers, you know, he was using the same software for the roofing academy that Tim was using for his university. And so we came in at a conference with him. And there was, you know, maybe like 30 of us, but just really like successful people. And he was one of them. And so I was like, hey, you got to sign this book. So he signed the book. But then one of my buddies, though, I was like, I think my buddy needs this book. So I took the signed copy and I gave it to my buddy. I was like, he better have read that. And I hope he got something out of it.
Oh, man, I've read that book like, I don't know, 9 times, 10 times, 11 times,
good.
Something like that.
So
I have to
good.
go back to my Audible, but yeah, that was a very inspirational book. And again, like you listen to that, and when he's talking about a cleaner, I'm like, I can identify with that personality.
Well, you know, and what I liked, you said it's speak to you. The goals speak to you. So for me, I always felt like if a goal spoke to me, I could accomplish it. But if it didn't speak to me, you know, there really wasn't a lot of energy there that I could put into it. So as soon as it spoke to me, I knew it. So like when I had that like 100-mile run, my buddy sent me a video, and it was a girl in Colorado who finished a 100-mile race, and I was just like, what? And she was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And so I was like, yeah, I wonder if I could do that. And I started running 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, right? Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. If you attach yourself to a goal, it doesn't matter what it is, with energy, and don't even think about how big it is, and you're dedicated, you just keep going, you will accomplish it.
Totally, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
100%. What's interesting is, so I was the first one to actually complete a Murph 365. My business partner actually started and completed his too. And then
that's awesome.
Once I completed it and he completed it, it like inspired a bunch of people to start. Not everybody has completed it, but there's a bunch of people that started, and there's been a lot of things that kind of like came out of that. And it's interesting because it just takes one person to do it, and then it becomes a normal thing, you know, like somebody running a 100-mile race. Somebody had to run a 100-mile race first. And then people were like, oh, shoot, you know, I guess it can be done. That's kind of crazy. I didn't think anybody could do that. I've never thought of that. But I guess the human body's capable, so I'm going to do it too. And now 100-mile races are like a thing, you know, it's a thing. There's some dude out in the United States somewhere who's on his, like, I think 700th Murph.
That's insane.
700 Murph in a row. He just does it every single day, and he's almost like through 2 years, you know?
And what I think what's key is what you get out of the goal. And ideally, for me, it was always best if you have a personal goal that's outside of business. And it's kind of like frees your mind, allows you to work on something different, right? I think it kind of loosens you up a little bit. And for me, I've always loved that. And right now, it's interesting. It's usually a physical goal, and right now, I don't really have one in mind. So maybe I'll have to keep that. Maybe I'll have to keep that in mind. Then who knows? How did you feel then, man? Were you sick days? I mean, days where you got injuries. Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, you had to, I worked through injuries. You have to make decisions ahead of time. That was probably that's one of the key things that I learned about it, is making decisions ahead of time. You know, and you think about, what am I going to do if, you know, my stomach's upset and I have the flu and I can't I can't be outside of 3 feet from the bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do if like my arm falls off? What am I going to do if like my leg stops working? Like, how am I going to handle this? And at that time, like COVID, like this, I started this before COVID even was a thing. And so I'm like, March 17th rolls around and I'm like, I don't know, I think I was 3 or 4 weeks in and the country started shutting down. California shut down. I think it was March 20th. And, I'm like, well, what am I going to do if I get COVID? I'm like, well, I guess I'll just keep on doing it. And, so, I mean, that day came. I knew the day was going to come when I was going to get sick and I was going to have to make that decision. And it was Christmas Eve, I believe. It was either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. And I felt like death, dude. I was 100 and whatever, 3-degree temp, 104-degree temp. My body was like achy and sore or whatever. And I just got out of bed, put my shoes on, put the vest on, and started walking outside. And my wife was like, "You're idiotic. You're not going to, there's no way." And I'm like, "Babe, I made this decision. I don't care like what the recourse is. Like, if I'm going to go out, I'm going to go out doing something, that I really enjoy. And, if I go out in life and I'm in the middle of a workout, great, But it was a decision that I made ahead of time. It was terrible. It sucked. It took me an hour and a half to finish. But I finished and I basically, fulfilled my commitment. And I have a video.
Fulfilled your commitment. That's the key term right there, right? You fulfilled your commitment. And that's the thing is when you do things like that, it kind of shows you how important that is. And I think when you look at people, you know right off the bat, like you kind of prejudge people. Hey, I know they'll do it, or I'm not so sure about them, right? And it's based off things like that. Hey, I know for a fact if Graham says he's going to do it, he's going to do it, right? And
100%.
That's the goal. That's what you want to be.
100%. I mean, if you really think about it, who do you communicate with the most? People talk about this all the time. Oh, you need to learn on how to communicate with other people. Be a better public speaker. You should learn how to, your words are really important, and they are important, and it is important to be good at communicating. But the number one person you need to learn how to communicate with is yourself. Mm-hmm. That is number one. And if you can't deliver what you promise, what do you think the communication to yourself is like?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So if I told myself I was going to do something and I didn't follow through, what am I telling myself at that point? There becomes a distrust. You don't trust yourself. You're not confident in your abilities. And that's one of the main reasons why people actually don't hit goals, is because they don't deliver on promises they make to themselves that nobody knows about. You know what I mean? Those things that you that you say you're going to do, but you don't follow through.
What's interesting is when you don't follow through, you don't hit your goals, which makes you feel bad about yourself.
Totally,
but then as people, we just tend to keep doing it sometimes, where it's like all of a sudden you lose that commitment, and that word doesn't mean anything when you say you're going to do something. How do you get out of that rut if you're someone that may be struggling now to follow through on things, to kind of flip that around and change your identity?
That's a great question. And so you have to really focus on the small things. So let me give you an example. So in some private training exercises that I've done, you're put in these situations where you're just like set up to fail, And so what they did was they would put pressure on you, and put you in these situations where it's predestined for you not to hit and not to accomplish it. And so after a while, you get into that state where you're just like, oh, I don't know, man. I mean, and you start to lose confidence and your performance starts to slip. But what you have to understand is that you can always, you're never out of the fight. There's always a chance for you to win, no matter the circumstances. And so the number one thing is just don't quit. Continue to move forward, but take smaller steps. Start to, instead of focusing in on the end goal and where you're supposed to be and where you quote unquote should be, focus on what's right in front of you and get to the next benchmark. Just focus on that. focused on first base versus second or third or home plate. Just get on base, dude. Get a single, you know, do
mini wins,
Yeah.
little wins, stack them up. Momentum is hot. You know?
Yep. And so that will actually create momentum. And then once you start to feel the momentum, that's when you double down and go for it. You know, and you can actually catch some ground and make up some ground. There was a time where we were doing this exercise and we were going up this mountain and I was falling behind, dude. I was like so demoralized. I was going into it super confident, and then they got us out of the vans, and you know, I can explain more later, but we started doing this beat down and this exercise that took a lot of energy out of me. And, you know, my confidence was shot, and I was very confident about the mountain because I've done a lot of like going up mountains, and I'm like, how hard can it be? You're just walking uphill. And, but it was hard. And I've
been there. I've had bad days up the mountain too.
Losing ground from the pack.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's easier to keep up than catch up. And I was like, yeah, I'm living that right now. And so the way you get back in it is like, well, what can I do? I'm like, well, they're probably moving at this pace. So if I can run for 30 seconds and walk for 30, you know, in a couple hours, I'll catch up to them. So I'm like, can I do that? Yeah, I can do that. Okay, cool. So I would just focus on that. 30 seconds. Here we go. I'm going to run. Okay, now I can walk. Okay, now I can run. And then before you know it, dude, I caught up to the pack, you know?
That's life, right? You just gotta hang in there, right? You gotta stay savage. You gotta stay out there. You gotta keep moving. It's all activity, right? You gotta think too. And we're talking about, hey, if you can stick to your personal goals and hitting these goals, right? And learn about really, hey, if I say something, I do it, and you get that momentum in that area of your life, what do you think is going to happen to your business? Do you think that momentum goes into the business?
Exactly.
That's key. And if you don't have momentum on your personal life, what do you think is going on in your business? You know what I mean? So that's what it's all about. So what else you got going on, man? So you're in the solar industry now. How you liking that? Kind of tell me about that side of things.
Well, I started getting into solar. This was last year. Well, I mean, when I was with Roofing 101, we've been in solar since 2018, you know?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think we were one of the first roofing companies to just be like, let's go all in on solar. You can see that now, you know, you look at the roofing industry and, you know, everybody's getting into it. Obviously the manufacturers are getting into it. GAF released their product, Certainty does their product. You know, at some point, you know, I would hope that Owens Corning decides to do something. I mean, it would make sense. You could see the blend in the industries. And I saw this years ago, like when we moved out to Cali, when we moved out here, you know, I have my roofing company and I'm meeting with these homeowners out here. And I'm like, oh, why are you replacing your roof? And they're like, well, we're going to go solar. We can't put panels up until we go solar. And it was like 25% of my clients. And I'm like, why am I not doing solar? You know, I really need to look into this. This is a thing. I can see the writing on the wall, you know, before you know it, across the country, you're going to see it. A lot of things, a lot of trends start in California and move in. A lot of trends start in like New York and Boston and move across. And so that's what you see, you know, solar, the number one office for, you know, solar, the two places are basically Boston, Massachusetts, and San Diego. Those are like the two hotspots. So, you know, I got into it and, you know, last year I started working with an organization, a company, you know, publicly traded, Sunrun. You know, they're the largest installer in the country, if not the world. They bought their number one competitor, Vivint Solar, out about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And what you're seeing is you're just seeing this conglomerate growing and developing. And I've actually been, since I started doing leadership training, I've scaled back on solar and I actually don't.
Nice. Okay. Very cool.
So I'm not like in the office all the time. But the, I do know that
I think you're meant for leadership, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just had different experiences in leadership that got you to this point, and now help develop other leaders. I feel like that's what you're meant to do.
Yeah, totally. That's what my unique ability and my quote unquote superpower is, man. It's just multiplying myself.
Lean into the superpower, man. And I guess, do you have any advice on that? I always think, it doesn't matter, how skilled you are, how talented you are. You just got to really lean into that superpower. Whatever, you do where it just seems like it's easier for you, and other people kind of struggle with it, and maybe people kind of compliment you, and you might not even realize it. Lean into that. Do you have any tips on people on this whole superpower thing, or how to kind of maybe maximize their potential?
Yeah, I think we're all we all have it. It's all we already have it inside of us, every single one of us, and that's part of the leader's DNA. So part of what we do in my company is help people discover what that is, and then it's once you know what it is, how do you use it? What's next? And so that's essentially what this is all about. So the things that we look at is, one, what are all the things that you're good at? What are all the things you're best in the world at? What are all the things that you are passionate about? Because what you're good at, you may not be passionate about it. Just because you're good at it doesn't necessarily, you see that all the time. You see people that are good at things, they make a career out of it, and then 10 years later, they're just like, I've lost my passion for this. Well, dude, you weren't really passionate about it in the beginning anyways. You were just good at it, and you didn't know what else to do, so you just did it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what we want to do is we want to find something you're good at and passionate about, and the world needs it. It's something that the world needs. You can sit down and define to you, what does the world need? And, my list may be totally different than your list, but we have a list of what we are based upon our view of the world. We can see what does it need. And then the other thing is what can you get paid for? What can you do to monetize it? So you take those 4 things, the list, and you see where it all intersects. And then that's what you take action on. And you know what? When you go through that exercise, a couple things happen. You're going to discover something new about you. You're going to come up with a new vision, or it's going to confirm what you're already doing. You may already be in it, and you're like, yep, I'm living my unique ability. I'm living my superpower. Because what happens is, there's people that work for companies right now that, that they're in the right place in the right seat at the right time with the right people. And they're in a great spot. And that exercise just confirms it.
Yep.
That's
I love that.
What happens.
So we have a little game we're going to get in here, and you're going to be kind of our test dummy, because we're transitioning from one game to another. All right. But before we go into the game, I do want to talk about some of your endurance athlete stuff that we really haven't talked about yet. So there's 3 of them that I actually wrote down. The Sparta 300. What is the Sparta 300? Tell me about that one.
All right. You ever seen the movie 300?
Of course.
All right. You know when the Spartans go from Sparta to Thermopylae? All right. Well, we did that. We did that. There's 20 of us that went, and we basically were the first ones to retrace the steps of King Leonidas and the 300 Spartans. It's 235 miles from Sparta to Thermopylae. We went to the hot gates, jumped in at the very end, and had a nice little victory swim. Man. But yeah, there's a statue of Leonidas and the 300 Spartans, over there at the hot gates in Thermopylae. It was one of the most epic trips I've ever done.
All right, next one. You did the Grand Canyon. I know this one, but I want you to explain the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim.
So the Grand Canyon's a big hole in the ground. It's massive. and it's probably one of the most beautiful sceneries you'll ever see. So what we did was we went to the South Rim, which is, the popular spot. That's a tourist spot where they have like a visitor center. They have trails and all that kind of stuff, restaurants. So we went to the South Rim. We went all the way down to the bottom. Then we went across the Grand Canyon. We went to the top, to the North Rim. So we went to the top of the North Rim, kind of touched a rock. We're like, ding, we're here at the top. And then we went back down to the bottom, crossed it again, and then went back to the top of the South Rim. So what they call rim. So we started at the South Rim, to the North Rim, back to the South Rim again. It's 52 miles, took us 20 hours, and it's equivalent to climbing Mount Everest.
Oof.
Just not the same elevation, of course.
Wow.
Yeah, the temperature rises. I think it was like 110 down at the bottom of the canyon. So it like 70 at the top, 110 down at the bottom. Super hot, not a lot of wind, but probably some of the best scenery you'll ever see in your life.
Unbelievable. No, yeah, I've heard that one's really, really cool. And then this other one, I actually saw, so James Iron Cowboy Lawrence, he was a speaker at one of the conferences we were at. He completed 100 full distance triathlons in 100 days. So he was your trainer, and you did a triathlon in 30 days training or something like that, or what was the story there?
Yeah. So James, when I decided I was invited to go do that Sparta 300 out in Greece, I was like, dude, I've never run a marathon before. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going to have to run, 235 miles. I need someone insane to come train me. Like, I need the best of the best of the best. And so I started looking around. I found James Lawrence, who at that time did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And so if you don't know what an Ironman is, a full Ironman, it's a lot of work, man. And so I was like, this guy's right up my alley. He's got to know what's up. So I contacted him. He agreed to train me. So he trained me and then actually came with me to Greece. So we were roommates, got to know each other really well. And then he was trying to talk me into doing an Ironman. He'd like shoot me a text or hit me up, be like, hey, dude, you want to come do an Ironman with me? I'm like, nope, not doing it. And so I'd reject and decline the offer. It was a fast no, slow yes type of a thing.
I love it, dude.
So, dude, he hit me up. He told me what he was doing last year. He's like, hey, I'm going to do 100 Ironmans in 100 days. And I need all the people, all the support I can get. I want you to come out and do one with me. And so I told him when I was done with the Murph 365, I'd go out and do one. So I finished it and then gave myself 30 days to train and went out there and did an Ironman with him in Utah.
Wow. Dang, dude. That's epic.
Yeah,
that was epic.
By far the most ridiculous thing in the entire planet.
And what I'll say too is any opportunity you can get to surround yourself by great people who are doing something that you want to do it. I don't care what it costs, time, money wise, do it, right? Because Graham literally was like, hey, you know what? I want to do this. And then found a dude who just ran 50 in 50 days in 50 states, right? And he is like this big brand and knows the formula, right? He's the best of the best. And you got to, train with him and look what you were able to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say that was, that was a big key, is just having the courage to say yes to something without having all the answers. But it's like, say yes, and then you can figure it out. You got time to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of like when we moved to California. It was like my wife and I decided in 30 seconds. We didn't have a plan. We just said, yes, we're going to do it. And then we started telling people that we were moving because we were afraid if we didn't tell people, we'd back out. So we went and we told our parents, and then we, told the news to the company, and then we made plans. We had plenty of time to figure it out.
Love it, my man. Well, hey, it's always a pleasure. Graham, one more time before we get into the game, what's the best way to get a hold of you if they want to learn more about what you got going with leadership?
Well, you can get on the website, leagueofleaders.com, which is like league, like sports league. And you could also reach me on any social media platform. Follow me there. You can follow me on Instagram. It's very easy to find me. It's very easy to find me on social media. There's nobody else on the planet that has my name. So
I love it. Well, hey, so this game here, so we were playing at first. Who wants to be a roofing millionaire, right, with different trivia games. We're now switching to more of a style to kind of embarrass our guests in a way. You know, if you've ever heard of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? We're going to have 3 of these questions that are very similar. We're just going to call them a roofer pop quiz. And we'll have 3 questions. And if you get 2 right, you will get a Peak Leads prize. Sound good? All right. So here is the first one. Category is history. What are the 3 branches of the United States government?
It would be federal, state, and judiciary.
So it was close, but legislative, judicial, and executive.
I
also got that one wrong, but like it was funny because I think I got one of them right, and then I was like, "Oh, I know what they are," but like I couldn't think of them. All right.
Yeah, I knew judiciary was one of them, but I was like, "Oh, yeah, the legislative." That's right. That makes sense. Those are the guys we complain about.
Yeah, exactly. All right. The next one that we're going into is science, which is the thinnest layer of the Earth. On this one, we're going to give you multiple choice, okay? So we have mantle, inner core, crust, or outer core.
Mantle, inner core, crust, or outer core. I'm going to say outer core.
It's the crust. I think I also said the outer core on that one as well. You would think so. I was between those 2, crust and outer core.
Dang.
We're not. These are tough. But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that a little bit. You know, once you kind of think it just has to like re-spark that part of your brain. I feel like it just pushes that information the way back. All right, we got math. When writing out a fraction, the numbers above and below the line are called.
Denominator and numerator.
Boom, let's go. We got it. Let's go. We got one. Ooh, I'm getting sweaty over here. Look at that. We got it. Nice work. We're gonna send you a prize anyway. We're gonna send you a shirt. So Danae will be talking to you about to get your address and size and whatnot and be sending you a shirt over. But to end it, I don't know if you saw the email from Danae, but you get to end it here. You end it with enlightenment. So you get the floor to, you know, book suggestion, a quote, whatever you want. The time is yours. We need something positive.
Awesome, man. Well, one of the things I was talking about, here's a quote, and then I'll just talk about that. Let me pull it up here.
Let's do it.
Hold on. All right. If you build an army of 100 lions, but their leader is a dog, in any fight, the lions will die like dogs. But if you build an army of 100 dogs and their leader is a lion, all dogs will fight like a lion. That's an awesome quote. But it just talks about,
I like that.
You know, the strength of a leader. And the strength of a leader comes from their ability to lead themselves. And so that's self-leadership, you know, like thinking about what you're thinking about, taking your thoughts captive. When the negativity comes up, like how do you handle yourself? You know, when the pressure is on, you know, it's kind of like the orange principle. So the orange principle is this: when the pressure is on, when you put pressure on an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. We all know that. It's an orange, you know? And so when the pressure's put on you, what comes out of you, right? And what do you want to come out of you? And if those 2 answers don't align, then you know that's what you need to work on. You know, those are the things that we need to work on in our life. So, because the pressure's not going to stop, life is challenging. You know, life is unforgiving. There's not a whole lot of grace in the world. So, when the pressure is on, that's when our authentic self comes out. So, if you want that to change, you know, then it's time to go to work on it. So that's what self-leadership is all about.
Always getting better, always developing, always improving. You know, if you look at the happiest people, they're progressing. And it doesn't matter what they're progressing in, what they're doing, right? It's all about the people that are progressing and developing, because we all want to be of value. And the only way to do that is to keep making yourself better. So Graham, my man, I appreciate you, dude. It's been great hanging out again. It's been too long. Let's connect soon.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. It's an honor.
See you, Graham.